Joining me now, Michael Fanone. He is a former Metropolitan Police Department officer who defended the U.S. Capitol 3 years ago. He's now a council member for Courage for America. Thanks so much for being with us. What does this anniversary mean for you? What does it mean for our country?
For me personally, the anniversary really doesn't mean very much at all. We're in the midst of the fight that began on January 6, 2021. And I'm not interested, personally in acknowledging the day until the fight has been finished, until there's been accountability for those responsible for orchestrating the insurrection at the Capitol, for inspiring so many Americans to attack law enforcement officers, to terrorize members of Congress and their staff, and threaten their safety and security, and quite frankly, to embarrass this country on an international scale.
When you talk about looking forward, you wrote a piece in The Hill today warning about the year to come. What is it that worries you most as we approach another presidential election?
What concerns me the most is the fact that the former president, Donald Trump, continues to espouse the same rhetoric, violent political rhetoric and lies that, like I said previously, inspired so many Americans to assault the Capitol. And that has never stopped. In fact, if anything, he has only ramped up that rhetoric in the aftermath of January 6th. And while we haven't seen another attack at the same scale that we witnessed, that I experienced firsthand on January 6th, we have seen countless acts of political violence inspired by Donald Trump and his sycophants in the aftermath of the worst attack on our Capitol in more than 100 years.
Michael, on Friday, I'm not sure if you saw this, an appeals court ruled that January 6th defendants can be held accountable for entering the Capitol, even if they weren't violent themselves. Political reporting, quote, "The decision is a victory for the Justice Department in cases against hundreds of defendants charged with misdemeanor counts of disorderly and disruptive conduct, one of the staple charges that has been applied to nearly every member of the mob that entered the halls of Congress." How does this speak to deterring the mob mentality that unfolded that day at the Capitol? Why is it important that everyone be held accountable?
Well, I look at everything through the prism of a former law enforcement officer. To me, accountability is the cornerstone of our criminal justice system. If you want to prevent people from committing criminal acts, they need to be held accountable. They need to be punished. So I think it's important. It's very important work what the Department of Justice has undertaken in investigating and prosecuting those responsible for committing violent acts, criminal acts on January 6, 2021. But obviously, it doesn't end there. This is an all hands on deck effort. Every institution in this country, every American for that matter, is responsible for ensuring the future of a democracy. We have Americans who have the ability to vote candidates like Donald Trump out of office. States are now taking up the debate as to whether or not an insurrectionist candidate can be a candidate at all. These are all efforts that are required to preserve democracy.
Michael, there's what happened on January 6th. There is what has happened in the days since January 6th. I'm thinking specifically about the misinformation and disinformation campaigns we've seen to whitewash what happened on January 6th. You yourself have become a sort of player or character in that misinformation and that disinformation, and the way that people have mischaracterized who you are, why you were there, what you did. As someone who has, I would argue, been a victim of that, at least had your life impacted by it, how do you think we get out from under the fact that there's still just a lot of Americans who believe lies about what it was that happened on January 6th, who at a minimum are not able to hold the truth of what you saw and experienced with your own eyes?
I've gotten beyond the I'm not really interested anymore in trying to convince Americans about what happened on January 6th. At this point, 3 years out, all the evidence has been put forth. The January 6th committee did an excellent job in investigating and presenting the results of their investigation to the American people. I'm just interested in defeating the MAGA movement and ensuring and holding those responsible for the insurrection accountable.
Michael Fanone, I am so very grateful for you and for your time. Thank you so much for being with us.